Let's see how we can create taillights like these inside of Blender. Before modeling, I already had a good idea of what I wanted the taillights to look like, so I started the blockout phase right away. I made sure to model all the light modules that I had in mind, as well as all of the design pieces and housing that could go into the design in the making of this taillight. This quick process allowed me to quickly see if it would fit the car or if I needed to iterate a new design. I continued tweaking the modules so that they fit the housing better, and also made sure that they were not going outside of it. I also gave each part some basic materials just to see what the final taillight would look like. And just like that, the blockout phase was pretty much done, and I was ready to move on to the next phase. With the blackout done, I started adding more details to the taillights, just like this backplate you can see here. This will prevent any light bleeding from unwanted directions, as well as giving it some more reflection. So basically I want to make the inside of this plate chrome, or a very reflective material. And so when the light coming from outside the tail light will bounce on it, it will just reflect on the light modules, and that will give them some more detail. Instead of having a very dark tail light in your renders, you will have some softer reflections and some more details popping out. On the inside it was the opposite. I wanted the dark material that would be quite rough to absorb a lot of light. And so if it was visible in some weird angles or through the panel gaps, it wouldn't create some weird reflections that would be very visible and distracting in the renders. So for everything that's kind of inside the shell of the car and that I don't want to be visible in the final renders, I tried to have some dark materials, and you can do that quite easily with the Solidify modifier, set to material offset to like 1. Once that was done, I was ready to move on to the next part, and the modeling of these taillights were quite simple, I must say, and were relatively low detail, so I will surely improve them in the future beyond this video. The next step would be adding more sophisticated materials to get an even more realistic look. The first step was modifying the glass, which I did using a Blender kit material as a base that I then edited the roughness, the normal values, and the color to make it more transparent. Now a nice way to enhance materials, I think, is using gradients, and in this case I use a gradient node plugged into the normal strength to play with the strength of the normal depending on the area. Now I wanted to adjust the strength so that on the center it would be very subtle and we would have a clear view of the emissive part, while on the outer parts I wanted it to be stronger and so more rough, and so you would have a more diffuse light. I repeated the process for the 4 light modules and made sure that it looked nice overall and not just individually. This required quite a lot of tweaking, and to be honest I should have switched to an image-based gradient made inside of Photoshop quite earlier, instead of trying to play with some procedural ones inside of Blender that are quite hard to visualize. Once I was happy with the look, I started working on the emissive part. Now this is a thin band of faces that I then used a gradient and an emissive shader node basically to control the strength output, the color, and then I plugged also a wave texture to kind of get this streak pattern on it. And I think it's really important to try to avoid to have a solid block of light, and that's what you see a lot of beginners do. They just put a big square of light in their taillights or headlights and it doesn't look very good. I tried to play with more subtle effects, and gradients are a nice way to achieve that. Now you can layer these effects like you see here. I basically have 3 gradients, 3 effects. the wave texture, a gradient that goes from the side and one gradient that goes on the top. So it's darker on the extremity and then it's darker on the sides, and so we only have a bright part in the center that is waved in addition to that. I then replicated the process for the 4 light modules, making sure to just duplicate the light strip for all of them instead of going and building it from scratch. Now this required a little bit of work, but I think it's really important that you do it, especially for lights, because in cars and vehicles it's usually the place that will draw the most attention. It's kind of the eyes of your cars, so it's quite important that you get them right, otherwise it breaks the illusion really quickly, or it gives the impression that a car is made cheaply and quickly. Once that was done, I was ready to check the lights under different HDRIs and making sure that they looked alright in different lighting conditions. And using Blender Kit, this is really easy and really quick to do. And after that I was ready to move on to the final tweaks. In this case, the final adjustments were really just rounding off corners, making sure everything was fitting nicely inside of the housing, that no parts were intersecting. And I also adjusted the angles of the different modules using lattices to control the different parts together instead of just going into edit mode and trying to fiddle with all of them. I also played with the materials some more, and then I was quite happy with the look of it, but taillights are never finished and I will surely rework them for the rest of the project. I hope you now have a better idea of how to model your taillights, headlights, or any projects that require a complex assembly of parts that are car related or anything. And if you learned anything or in this video or have any subjects or idea you want me to cover, please let me know in the comments, like the video, and I will see you next week. Thank you, bye.